We are taking up our preset, which is the Indian River Lagoon Economic Valuation. And here to introduce the item is John Mayle, presumably.
John Mayle, Environmental Resources Division. I am happy to introduce Valerie Seidel, who came on a request from Commissioner Hetherington, who heard her presentation, Courtney's presentation, to the Indian River Lagoon Council last month on the economic impact of ecology restoration in the Indian River Lagoon. It was a fantastic presentation. It's great science, and it substantiates the investment that all the local governments, the state and the feds make in the estuary restoration. So I was pleased to have them be available to come give that presentation to you.
Welcome, Ms. Seidel.
Thank you.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Commissioners, for this opportunity. Again, I'm Valerie Seidel, and Courtney Cortez is here with me today as well. So thank you for this opportunity. We've been working with the IRL NEP over the past year to update their economic impact study. The last time this analysis was completed was in 2016. It was, well overdue. And the previous economic impact analysis was your standard direct, indirect, induced type of economic impact study. And this time, Duane DeFries, the director there, really wanted more of a focus on the ecosystem services, which is, after all, what we value from the lagoon. So we really took the approach of focusing on the ecosystem services. Oops. Okay. Told myself I had to do that the other way. There we go. Okay. So lagoon-wide, we used what's called INVEST. This is a model that specifically looks at the valuation of ecosystem services, and find that lagoon-wide, over 940,000 acres of preserved land and natural lands are retaining more than 100 billion gallons of flood water annually. That's waters that would otherwise be in our homes and our roads and so forth. 52,000 acres are providing additional coastal protection because of collecting storm surge and so forth. 360,000 acres are providing water filtration and purification services. And all told, these lands and waters generate habitat, aesthetic, and recreational values. And when we look at these across the different services that they provide based on very detailed mapping of vegetation and habitats that are there, we find over $10 billion in annual ecosystem services and economic values provided. And that ranges from $3.7 million in commercial fishing all the way up to $6 billion in recreational activities, shoreline boating, and so forth, and including property values. So I'll talk a little bit about the individual values. So we looked at each of these across the data that's available using GIS mapping and published values. And so, for example, for coastal protection, we're looking at the difference in the exposure to coastal hazards with and without these natural protective processes intact. So if you paved over the lagoon, what would you have left there? And so we use very detailed land cover data from Fish and Wildlife to estimate these coastal protection habitats. In the map that you see here, this is a little screenshot, a zoom in near Tequesta, right there near the county line, and it's showing, in this case, some mangroves and oyster beds and how those are mapped. So when we look at these across the lagoon, that's about 52,000 acres of habitats that provide this coastal protection. That generates almost $250 million a year in protective economic value. And the NOAA-funded projects that are underway currently are projected to add an additional $8.4 million annually. When we look at water filtration, similarly, we can look at the different types of habitat and vegetation and how they process nutrients and provide water filtration and purification services for us. And these are, mind you, services that we would otherwise have to provide through some built infrastructure or otherwise. So we have about 360,000 acres across these different habitat types, and that's generating more than $500 million in public value annually. The NOAA-funded projects that are currently underway are estimated to add about $38 million alone in annual value. When we look at wildlife habitat, we all know that Floridians have consistently shown a preference for strong preservation of wildlife habitat. And again, using the FWC land cover data, we can see the different habitat types that the public has placed a high value on. All told, these generate more than $1 billion annually in public values. And I want to just pause there for a moment. That's a big number. And I want to state that we used conservative estimates across all of these. So in every instance, there are higher and lower values that you can use across these values, and we have taken the lower bound so that there's room for recognizing that, there's estimates. These are all estimates. And if you look on the right there, you can see the map, and that's showing how these ecosystem services vary by basin and by type. So anywhere from $435,000 in one of the sub-basins up to $90 million in annual services. And then finally, in aesthetic values or property values, this is kind of the cold, hard cash. So again, if you paved over the lagoon, what would that house be worth if it were sitting there without the lagoon next to it versus with? And so we're able to tease out, for example, if you have a 3-bed, 2-bath home with a pool in a certain school district and it's next to a lagoon versus if it's not, we're able to tease out that value of that proximity to the lagoon. And this, of course, varies county to county. So in the maps here, you can see in Brevard, for example, being very close to the lagoon adds about $350,000 to the average sales price, all other factors being equal. In Palm Beach County, it's almost $1 million. And when we look across the lagoon by county, you can see there in Martin County, we have almost $3 billion, just over $3 billion in added value for waterfront properties that we can attribute to the lagoon. We can annualize these values at using a cap rate, and that's generating economic flows of about $350 million every year to local coffers. Lagoon-wide, this adds up to about $22.9 billion. That sounds like a lot, but for context, each of these counties is close to $100 billion by themselves. So annualized, that adds about $1.4 billion to Florida's economy. And then we also looked at benefit cost analysis across the NOAA-funded projects. And we looked across the lagoon, so we tried to pick examples that were not the most extreme case of any of these particular types of restoration or of any of the particular locations, so that we were distributed across the lagoon, north, south, and so forth, and one for each primary habitat type. And we estimated their total costs over 10 years, as well as their estimated total benefits over 10 years. So you can see in the first example, salt marsh habitat, the example was Karen Bay. The total costs are estimated about $380,000. The total benefits over 10 years in current dollars are estimated about $2.7 million. And they vary, by type and by location. So when we look at all of them, you can see there on the left how they sort themselves out. You can see the two outliers there, Begum Point Marsh and the National Wildlife Refuge pieces. Those are both where we are removing impoundments, so we'll really be restoring fish passage in a really transformational way. And so the return on investment there is huge because they are transformational. They're having large areas of impact across a large number of habitats. But even if you took those out of this entirely, the return on investment would be about 10 times the dollar. So for every dollar you spend, you're getting 10 times back, including them. Overall, these projects are estimated about 24x. So for every dollar we're spending on these habitat restorations, the public is receiving a return of about $24. And then finally, we did also look at the standard sort of economic impact study, and this is looking at spending within the lagoon, so that direct spending impact, and then we margin that out for things that don't happen locally. So for example, if you buy a gallon of gas, we don't make gas here, so most of that money leaves the local community. So we margin that out, and then we look at how much of that then creates indirect effects through payroll and so forth, and induced employment and spending from second round spending from those employees and businesses that are impacted by the first round. And what we find is that across the entire lagoon, we have value added of about $15 billion annually. That includes that $1.4 billion from the property value impacts annualized. From an output perspective, that's about $26.9 billion in spending that would otherwise not occur. And this is supporting 128,000 jobs with total payroll of about $8 billion annually. So significant numbers, significantly larger numbers than the last go-around, as you would expect. And in the context of the other NEPs around the state, very much in line with what we see in Chenap, Biscayne Bay, Tampa Bay, and so forth. When we look at this across the different sectors, you can see here how that 128,000 jobs sorts itself out. A large piece of that is associated with the recreation, which is, what the public values in a great way for the lagoon. And one thing I'll draw your attention to is within the natural resource management area, while that only shows 1,000 jobs overall, we were able to identify 440 directly funded restoration jobs. And those 440 jobs generated another 600 indirect and induced jobs. That's important because they're generating more than one additional job for every job that's funded. If you look at some of the other sectors, for every job that's directly funded, they might generate another 0.3, 0.4. And in large part, that's because much of that output that's getting generated leaves the area. Whereas with your habitat restoration, it means generally they're local scientists, they're using locally produced materials and so forth. So they really have an outsized economic impact. And then in terms of Martin County specifically, we find that Lagoon supports about 15,000 jobs directly based on employment numbers, about $800,000 $800 million in annual payroll, adding about $1.4 billion to the local economy from $3 billion in total output. And that generates about $124 million in state and local taxes every year and supports about $176 million in federal taxes each year. And all of this data is available in a dashboard. The link is here so that anyone can go in and slice and dice this by their city, their county, their habitat of interest, a particular area, priority communities, and so forth. And that is publicly available for, most of it's available for 2012 to 2022. Some of that data is only available from 2019 forward. But it is all there for individuals to access as they wish. And there you have it. Good demonstration of a good use of public funds. We find that the returns are more than beneficial to the public as they are spent, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Hetherington.
No, thank you for coming here. I thought the presentation was so fantastic the last time I heard it. And how often do you hear that you're getting 24 times the return on the investment and these staggering numbers? And I think as Florida grows, and even Martin County, we have 1,000 people a day, they say, moving to Florida, and many from other parts of the country that are not necessarily acquainted with our Indian River Lagoon and why it's so important and what the benefits are. I think it's important that we continue to share that message, why we're investing all of this time, effort, and energy in protecting our water quality. So thank you very much. Those numbers are absolutely staggering to me.
Thank you.
Commissioner Capps.
The phrase that came to mind was, our rivers are the lifeblood of our community. And boy, does that seem so, based on what you've just said. I appreciate the presentation. It was very well done and super thorough. You're making my head swim. I was trying to think, is she an engineer or is she an economist? I think you're both, so. But very good job.
Excellent presentation. Thank you very much.
As they're departing, I've had the privilege of working with Courtney and Valerie in the past when they did work for the Florida Inland Navigation District, and I know Valerie is a great presenter, but if you want to nerd out on the various analytical techniques, Courtney is the one you want to talk to.
Thank you. Let's see, do we just have one item left, and that's the P3 project?
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Commissioner Sean Donahue, General Services Director. This item is for the board to discuss and provide staff direction on an unsolicited proposal for a public-private partnership, a P3, from the company named Building Tomorrow's Schools, Inc. They're a Florida not-for-profit 501c3 organization. The unsolicited proposal was submitted under the requirements of Florida Statute Section 255-065 and the county's P3 policies in the purchasing manual. It was submitted specifically under subsection 3C of the Florida statutes as an expedited project. The unsolicited proposal provides financing options and a cost to construct a 114,000 square foot maintenance and operations facility, including all site and utilities work on the county-owned 30-acre parcel located on Waterside Way. The delivery of the completed building and site work is projected to be July of 2027, so it's an accelerated schedule. The unsolicited proposal provides a breakdown of costs for the project, including $6 million for soft cost designs, $63 million for the construction of the project and the site works, and then $5 million for FF&E, fixed furniture and equipment. It also provides for allowances the total project is $74 million. It provides allowances for financing, 3 different ways: full financing by the proposer, partial financing with a buy-down option, and then the county's self-financing. We would look at all 3 of those. The proposal was submitted with a $25,000 fee as required by the county's policies. The fee is available to use for consulting review services to help provide evaluation of the proposal. This item is presented as the first meeting of a 3-meeting process where we would, under Section 3C of the Florida statute, staff recommendation is that the board accept the unsolicited proposal and authorize staff to analyze the proposal using the fees provided and come back with additional information. There's an alternative recommendation where the board would solicit alternative P3 proposals for the operations facility, and that would be according to Section 255-065-3B of the Florida statutes.
Mr. Capps?
Yes, I know that the relocation of the operations facility has been a long, drawn-out hope and aspiration. Does anyone have any idea when this became an issue and how long this has been talked about?
25 years ago.
25? Is it that?
At least, yes.
At least. So it's really long overdue. And the people who work at the operations facility have been very patient. So we appreciate that. And I'm comfortable with what I'm seeing here, and I would move staff recommendation.
Commissioner Vargas?
Okay, so I've heard everything you've said, and of course, we had our discussion. 2, $74 million is a lot of money. I know there are other entities out there that would like to throw their hat in the ring, and how are you continuing to actively solicit? If this was unsolicited, how are you doing this? And are there others? Because, we have to have something that makes sense, too, economically. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And whatever the going rate may be, I think that was your response to me, we really need to massage these numbers better. So whoever's going to come in is going to make a lot of money. Also, nobody's losing money doing this. So how are you going to continue to get more bids?
The proposal was provided as an unsolicited proposal, so it was not advertised. It follows the Florida statutes in that provision. There is an alternative recommendation that we could reach out and get more bids and approach it that way. We will come back with an analysis using our consultants to provide, is this a affordable project? Does it meet all the requirements? Does it meet current standards, current price values? So that'll all come back to us.
Yeah.
Commissioner, if I may add, this is only the first step of a 3-step process. So there's 2 additional steps which we will be required by statute to come back before the board. So anybody that's interested in this project could submit an unsolicited proposal from now until the board decides to enter into a comprehensive agreement. The comprehensive agreement would be determined by the board at the second board meeting after the consultants bring their evaluation of the proposal from, that would be our financial consultants and architect.
So Commissioners, the P3 process is new to us. However, we've had discussions with you all and amended our purchasing manual to accommodate the P3 process. And through our CIP process, there are a number of businesses in our community that are aware of our need for our public works facility. We've also talked about our need for the medical facility. And in those public conversations that we've had, we do know that there are entities that were interested in submitting on these. So we do believe, while it is unsolicited and did not specifically solicit for this type of proposal, the opportunity, Martin County has certainly announced not only through that, but we also hired some consulting firms that help us in the real estate that specialize or have a specialty with P3, that we have made it known to those that have done P3s that we are willing to accept P3s not only on this project but on other projects that are listed in our CIP. So we would expect that during this time of evaluation, that if there are any other individuals that are interested, they would be afforded the opportunity to submit, and that we would bring those to you just like this. And if we got a similar proposal for this project, we would then be analyzing them both on their own merits, but then comparing the two together, so that we would follow that process. It's also important to note that this process does have its own procurement specialties in terms of cone of silence and all those, and we would be following that. So today's meeting is an example where we're talking about it, and any of the businesses out there that see this on the agenda affords them the opportunity to see that we are accepting P3 proposals for a facility like that. And so we would hope that if there are competitors, they would be coming forward in the next several months as we go through this process.
Yes, I understand everything you've said. My question is, I understand it's 25 years, but this is a lot of money. And we have to be very judicious and fiscally sound with this money. How can you actively advertise in whatever platforms? And you may have to reach out to, I don't know, the person, the entity, to say, okay, we are soliciting for this. What can you do to propel this? Because right now you're just going to be looking at the study that deals with the bond council, the real estate group, and the engineering architectural site planning. I understand that's what that money is used for, and that was part of the requirement in order to bring a bid forward to us. But what can you do to get the word out? And rather than happenstance, somebody looks at this meeting today, that's not actively pursuing the best deal.
Sure. So if the board decides to go through the expedited process, we can't solicit it. The alternative recommendation, if the board prefers to go through the solicitation process, we would be posting it and advertising it on the Federal Register. So that's ultimately up to the board today.
Okay, I think it's important to solicit other bids. I think it's vitally important. In the meanwhile, you can look at this particular proposal based on the applicant's money. It's not costing us, and you can do your due diligence on that. But I would like to solicit other proposals for this.
Commissioner Hetherington.
What is the timeline that you project for the analysis stage? So if this was accepted, what is the timeline to analyze the proposal?
Sure. So the
Once-
second board meeting, we're looking to come back either in January or February with those consultants.
Okay, so if we went where we could accept any other proposals, which would not be the expedited route, then in that time frame, in my mind, there has to be a cutoff, because we have to be able to analyze and then move on something. But I would like, if we were going to, if there's an opportunity that somebody would submit another proposal, I would like the opportunity to analyze that. But I believe there has to be a finite timeline so that we're not hanging up or even losing potential interested parties. So would you say then, by the beginning of the year, if we did a non-expedited, that we could still say, okay, we're no longer accepting proposals?
So if we're no longer accepting proposals, that would take place after the second board meeting, and if the board votes to approve the county staff to enter in negotiations for a comprehensive agreement, at the third meeting is when we would come back with that comprehensive agreement. So basically, we have until either January or February, how long it takes for the consultants to get this evaluation done and for us to bring it back to the second meeting. If you want, you can direct us to come back in February. That way it gives us time to evaluate this proposal, and should any other proposals come in, we would have this first step meeting as well to then evaluate that second, third, fourth proposal.
I would like to evaluate it, but accept other proposals while we're evaluating it, and then have a deadline so that we can move forward with the project as well.
Understood.
Yeah, this is new to us, and so I was prepared to be cautious as always. And this proposal is so thorough. It's so professionally rendered. Their references are fantastic. Their experiences are tremendous. I'm reassured. I think that, and also their estimate that they could have a facility that we can move into in June of 2027 is really, really remarkable and very attractive. I think it's a great proposal. I'm certainly eager to proceed. Ms. Elder.
Mr. Graham answered my question.
Okay. Commissioner Vargas.
I think that we also should make the decision today to put this on the federal platform that you mentioned and get the word out, do the advertisement. I think that's critical. That would be the way that I operate my personal life too. I get various bids, I just don't run with the first one.
If there's no second, I will pass the gavel and second the motion.
Commissioner, Chair,
Yeah.
if I may, we need to ask for public comment on this.
I'm sorry, is there anyone from the public who'd like to address us? Thank you, Mr. Graham. So, can you be the substitute? Can he be the vice chair?
Yes.
Sure.
Excellent, call the question.
But
So we,
isn't it Commissioner Caps's motion, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was.
So then maybe Commissioner
I
Heatherington
could
should be
take it.
vice chair, or Commissioner Vargas, yeah.
Yeah. You want to be the vice chair?
Sure. So the motion on the floor is to only move forward as an expedited?
It is. I would suggest that I know the board is open to other proposals, that staff would probably set a date to not come back before February, or, by no sooner than the middle of February, to give other proposers the opportunity to come in.
So I just need clarity. The motion on the floor would accept other proposals within a certain time frame?
Yeah, so the expedited proposal directs us to follow that procedure, but we can still receive other unsolicited proposals up until the time that you decide that you want to negotiate a contract and so we're suggesting that would be no sooner than the middle of February.
Okay.
The second board meeting is February 24th, if that helps.
Okay, I think the latter portion in February, that gives us almost 3
Yeah.
months.
But we can't solicit at all for them. They would have to be unsolicited.
I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that the motion that's on the floor, because that determines the way I would vote, that we could, if an unsolicited proposal, that also then would come to the board
Yes.
and be analyzed.
Yes, and
One were to be presented.
it would be. And if we have several of them, we would discuss with the board about the timing of when we would bring both of those together. So February is a timeline that we're suggesting, February 24th. and that if we receive another proposal, then we would do that analysis, and we wouldn't bring both of those for consideration until staff felt that we had enough data to, enough information to render a comparison between the two.
Great, okay. All right,
Does that mean you're seconding
No.
my motion?
Commissioner Hurd
Oh, you already seconded it.
seconded it. I misunderstood the parameters of your motion to, I thought I heard Matt Graham say that if that was approved, that we would not accept any other solicited proposals.
We will accept them.
Okay.
We just won't advertise for them.
Correct.
Okay.
So how can you not advertise so that folks know that this is an opportunity?
It is a peculiar instrument of the P3 process within the state of Florida, and that is the peculiarity of the unsolicited proposal. Part of it has to do with the, how we've had to redact things for the trade secrets and other things that unsolicited proposals have the opportunity to work with their local government on these types of projects. So we can accept additional unsolicited proposals, but we're not required to advertise for them under this process.
But why don't we advertise for them?
The motion on the floor is to accept the expedited process, which does not use the Federal Register.
All right, so is it an additional month then to use the Federal Register?
If I recall, I believe it's 14 days.
An additional 14 days?
21 to 120 days.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
21 to 120 days.
An additional 21 days?
No, to 120 days, though.
Right.
It could be, how long is that? Let's say,
So we're already
four months.
talking beginning of December.
That's
January,
4 months,
February.
yeah.
Okay, so an additional month, it gives us an opportunity to open up to see who else can make a solid proposal.
But it could be up to 4 months.
But it could be, we could put a,
And that could blow our deal with the P3, right?
I don't think so.
We would get pretty close because there's a deadline with the existing P3, right? Don't we have to sew this thing up by June of next year?
Well, that's June.
Yeah,
Under the expedited process.
right. But you're getting pretty close if it took 4 months,
Yeah, I think any proposer is going to want an avenue of certainty. So if they don't have a decision, it'd be like if you were putting on a roof and you put out a quote. If they didn't accept the quote for 14 months, the pricing may differ.
Right.
So I think that there has got to be some parameters.
Well, we definitely could put limitations on that so the pricing doesn't differ on the roof. I mean, we're talking about a lot of money here, and people are kind of not listening to this. This is a lot of money. And I think that we ought to explore all avenues to be able to get the best deal for our taxpayers. So this is not something to be taken lightly. And an additional, what did you say? I'm sorry, Frank, what did you say?
The
14
minimum
days?
advertisement time in the Florida Administrative Register would be 21 days with a maximum of 120 days.
Okay, so we could do it for 21 days then. Is that correct? Frank?
If you chose the public bidding process, yeah, you could do 21.
I think it's important. I don't think we ought to be closing off. I think we have to explore every avenue. Because we only have one on the table right now. I mean, I don't know, unless somebody speaks to somebody at the supermarket or something like that. How else is somebody going to know that this is available? It's an option. For a viable concern, might be another viable concern.
I think that this home for Public Works is desperately needed. It's beyond time, and we need to evaluate this. And that's where the motion gives us an opportunity to use the $25,000 that the proposer is giving us to evaluate the viability of this proposal. And I'm confident that at the end of that time, we will have a fuller idea of whether this is a good idea to proceed with.
Okay, I'm not opposed to using the funds provided for the study. What I am saying is that we do need to seek other avenues, other options, as you would. You're buying a car, you're buying a house in a certain area, which is the best value. and we need to know this.
Well, the $25,000 is from
I understand this.
Building Tomorrow Schools.
Building Tomorrow Schools, I understand that. Anybody who would make a proposal will be required to put up the same amount of money so that we could do the study and make sure it's viable and feasible and cost effective. We have to have a good return on our investment for this. So,
Anybody else have any comments, questions? We have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in
and
favor?
what's the motion?
Staff's recommendation.
To
Expedited.
To not, oh, so we're
Analyze
not going to be
this.
advertising?
It was
Is that
for
what I'm
the expedited
understanding?
proposals,
Yeah, we're going to accept the.
And to accept other unsolicited proposals.
With a return date of February 24th for the second meeting.
At the soonest. Yes.
Okay. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 3-1 with Commissioner Vargas dissenting.
And Commissioner Campy.
Campy and Commissioner Campy absent.
Thanks. Thank you. What else do we have? Would anyone from the public like to address us? Mr. Vargas, any closing comments?
Yes, I do, as a matter of fact. Last meeting, there were some comments made which I think were not really well thought out. And I do want to say my contemporaries on the Martin County Board don't believe in attending conferences. But that is where you learn. And that is where a commissioner is able to talk with other 66 Florida County administrators and commissioners, city managers and city commissioners about challenges, issues, and the potential solutions. And by the way, at this last conference that I attended 2 weeks ago, the overwhelming focus was on controlling expenses within government, the property tax proposed reforms, and what revenue will replace the property tax revenue. Where will it come from? In addition, there was discussion, question, and answer about data centers with the heavy usage of power, which we talked about this morning, water, which is finite, and it's all not recirculated. That's erroneous. Land requirements and noise pollution, creating a strain on resources, which are, again, finite. By the way, the property tax proposals, I have 2 pages here, which I picked up, and there was spirited conversation, so I brought that back. But that's only if you go and attend conferences to be able to speak with others. So what I say is some of my colleagues on the Martin County Commission have stated that this is not the real job, and maybe just collecting a handsome check 26 times a year is okay. Well, this is my real job, and I take this position seriously, representing the taxpayers of Martin County. Let's go back to the conferences. Any Martin County commissioner is able to attend conferences, meetings, or other activities to make our county outstanding, but they choose not to go. Furthermore, it's a coincidence that Commissioner Hetherington used the Freedom of Information Act, a FOIA, to delve into my travel and furniture expenses, yet Commissioner Campy brought it up in the last meeting. Now, I wonder why that would be.
Commissioner Hetherington.
I'm going to have to step in and correct the record because I didn't put any kind of FOIA request in.
That's not my understanding.
Commissioner Capps, any closing comments?
I think I'm good, but, the idea that none of us go to any conferences doesn't sound right. I've been to continuing education. I've been to in Gainesville. Where else have I been? I went to FAC in Tampa. We're going to be going to Tallahassee real soon. There's some travel involved with the job, and conferences are part of it. And so the idea that none of the rest of us go to any conferences, I don't think is accurate.
Commissioner Hetherington.
I think we all go to the conferences that we feel represent, our interests and whatever we can do to further Martin County. So, and I'm all set. We'll see you all at the Christmas parade on Friday, Saturday, Friday night in Stewart, Saturday afternoon in Hope Sound, and Saturday evening in Indiantown.
And there's tonight Jensen Beach. Join us for the tree lighting.
On activities, Mr.
Lots
Donaldson,
of them.
Thank you.
Ms. Elder, clerks. We're adjourned.